These fake HOA cops kept hopping my fence like it was public property, acting like my land belonged to them. And the HOA president swore I was hiding something. What they didn't realize was that my property wasn't just outside their authority. It was about to teach them a very painful lesson about trespassing. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. I've owned this land long before the cookie-cutter houses showed up next door. Acres of open pasture, a fence I built myself, and a deed that's older than the entire HOA combined. I don't attend their meetings. I don't follow their rules, and I don't owe them a single explanation. That didn't stop Diane, the HOA president, from trying. She first showed up with a fake smile and a clipboard, claiming my property fell within HOA influence. I told her calmly that it didn't. She asked to see my deed. I said no. She asked again the next week. Then again, each time her tone sharpened. You'd have nothing to hide if you were in compliance, she said. I'm not in your HOA, I replied, and don't need to prove it to you. That's when the problem started. A few days later, I spotted two men in black shirts labeled HOA cops standing on the other side of my fence. They weren't surveying. They weren't knocking. They were staring, counting fence posts, pointing at the pasture like they were planning something. The next morning, I caught them doing something bold. They jumped my fence. No permission. Just boots over wire like it was theirs to cross. I walked out and told them plainly, "You're trespassing. Get off my land." One of them laughed. The other said, "We're verifying boundary compliance. You don't have authority here." I said, "Next time you cross that fence, it won't end politely." They shrugged and hopped back over like it was a joke. But it wasn't a joke. Over the next week, they did it again and again. Sometimes together, sometimes alone, always jumping the fence, always acting like warnings didn't apply to them. I went straight to the HOA office. Diane leaned back in her chair when I explained. "My officers are just doing their job." "Your officers are trespassing," I said. "I've warned them," she smirked. "Maybe if you showed us your deed, this wouldn't be necessary." That was the moment I understood exactly what this was about. They wanted my land. Not legally, not honestly, just pressure and intimidation until I caved or slipped up. And Diane thought those fake cops hopping my fence would scare me into compliance. She was wrong. The next morning, I watched them again. Same routine. 1 foot on the wire, hands on the post, laughing as they dropped onto my grass like they owned it. I didn't shout this time. I didn't warn them again. I just turned around and went back inside because if they wanted to keep crossing my fence without permission, I was done asking them to stop. And the next time they jumped it, they were going to find out exactly how serious I was about my land. The very next day, I called a licensed installer and walked him along the fence line. We talked voltage limits, warning signage, grounding rods, everything by the book. What I wanted wasn't a trap. It was a deterrent. A fence that did exactly what fences are meant to do when people ignore clear boundaries. By sunset, the upgrades were done. From the outside, nothing looked different. Same posts, same wire, same gate with the same no trespassing sign they'd already laughed at. The only additions were the small yellow warning placards spaced out every few yards. Plain readable, impossible to miss if you were actually paying attention. I also finished installing the cameras. One angled down the fence line, another covering the pasture, time-stamped, motion-triggered, backed up to the cloud. If anyone crossed again, there would be no confusion about what happened or who was at fault. 2 mornings later, just after sunrise, I heard the familiar crunch of boots on gravel. I watched from the kitchen window. There they were, same 2 men in their black HOA cop shirts, leaning against the fence like it was part of their morning routine. One pointed across my land, the other laughed. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I'd seen this show enough times. One of them grabbed the top wire. The moment his hands touched it, his body locked up like he'd hit a live rail. A sharp yell cut through the air, and he stumbled backward, landing hard on his backside. The second guy lunged to help, instinct over intelligence, and grabbed the fence too. Bad idea. He got hit just as hard, jerking back and tumbling into the dirt with a string of words that definitely weren't HOA approved. Both of them lay there for a second, stunned, staring at their hands like the fence had personally betrayed them. I stepped outside calmly. "Morning," I said. They scrambled to their feet, faces red, eyes wide. "What the hell did you do?" one of them shouted. "You can't do that." I nodded toward the warning sign 5T from his shoulder. "Looks like I can and did. You tried to hurt us," the other yelled. "No," I said evenly. "I tried to stop you from trespassing." It worked. They backed away from the fence, furious and embarrassed, shouting threats about reports and violations and lawsuits. I didn't respond. I just watched them retreat. This time, using the sidewalk instead of my pasture. I figured that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Less than an hour later, Diane came flying down the road in her SUV, tires kicking dust. She stormed up to the fence, phone in hand, eyes blazing. "You assaulted my officers," she screamed. "You electrified your fence to hurt them." "They were warned," I replied multiple times. "They trespassed again." "You can't just decide to do this," she snapped. "I didn't decide," I said. "I installed a legal fence on my property. They decided to jump it." She pulled her phone out and started dialing. "I'm calling the police." A neighbor across the road stepped out, arms crossed. Another neighbor joined him. Someone else raised their phone and started recording. "Good," I said. "Please do." Diane hesitated, then finished the call anyway, still convinced she was in the right. She had no idea what the cameras had already captured, no idea how many times they'd crossed that fence, and no idea how badly this was about to blow back on her. I leaned against the post and waited. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe, because the story is only going to get better. The sheriff's deputy arrived first, followed by a second cruiser a few minutes later. Both parked along the road, taking in the scene before anyone said a word. The warning signs on the fence, the open pasture behind it, the two embarrassed HOA cops nursing their hands, and Diane pacing like she was rehearsing a speech. She didn't wait long. "He assaulted my officers," Diane blurted out. "He electrified his fence to hurt them. That land is part of our HOA, and he refuses to comply." The deputy looked at me. "Is that true?" I stayed calm. "No, sir. This land isn't in their HOA. They've been trespassing for weeks. I warned them. I upgraded the fence legally." Diane scoffed. "Then prove it. Show your deed." I nodded once gladly. I walked inside and came back with a folder, survey maps, the recorded deed, boundary markers, and printed screenshots from the cameras. The deputy flipped through them carefully, then radio dispatch to confirm the parcel lines. While he waited, I pulled up the footage. The screen showed everything. The two men hopping the fence on different days, laughing, pointing, walking deep into my pasture. Clear timestamps, multiple angles, clear warning signs in frame. Then the final clip, both of them grabbing the wire and getting shocked as they trespassed again. The deputy exhaled slowly. "All right, that answers that." He turned to the two men. "You've been told to stay off this property?" They shifted. One muttered, "Yeah, and you kept crossing the fence anyway?" Silence. The second cruiser's deputy checked the fence signage and voltage label. "This fence is compliant," he said. "Warning signs are posted. It's legal." Diane's face started to tighten. But our HOA, ma'am? The first deputy cut in. Your HOA has no authority over this land. And these men are not law enforcement. One of the fake cops cracked. She told us to assert boundaries, he said, pointing at Diane. She said the land would be folded into the HOA eventually. We were just supposed to pressure him. The road went quiet. Diane spun on him. You idiot. Enough, the deputy said. They separated everyone. Statements were taken. More neighbors stepped forward, offering their own videos and complaints about the same two men jumping fences and throwing their weight around. By the end of the hour, decisions were made. The two fake HOA cops were cited and arrested for repeated trespassing and impersonation. Diane was detained on the spot for conspiracy and directing unlawful activity. The sheriff's office opened a formal investigation into the HOA's conduct and its claimed boundaries. Before she was put in the cruiser, Diane tried one last time. You can't do this. I'm the HOA president. The deputy closed the door. Not anymore. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread fast. The HOA was forced to issue a public correction of its boundary maps. Diane was removed from her position and fined heavily. The two men received jail time, probation, and a permanent ban from any HOA enforcement role. As for my land, it was officially reaffirmed as independent, surveyed, recorded, and posted. The fence stayed. No more trespassers, no more fake authority, just quiet pasture and clear boundaries. And that's how a simple fence upgrade exposed an HOA that thought intimidation could replace the law and learned the hard way that some lines aren't meant to be crossed. The end.